Good morning, friends. This is Noah with What If News, and it's been a week, right? I mean, Texas is in a snowstorm. People are dying, people are suffering all around the world. But in America, where we have these stories about, being the greatest country on earth and, being what, civilized, people are getting $1,700 electric bills. Rush Limbaugh died. It's a waxing gibbous moon. It's a good time to chop firewood and get yourself through the cold of the winter, because February does tend to be the coldest part of the year. But I wanted to kind of sit a little bit with, so many people have been talking about Rush Limbaugh's death, and we don't talk enough in our country about the impact of words. People often say, well, they believe it, or freedom of speech. And the bloviating that Limbaugh did helped to separate generations of middle class Americans from their fellows. It helped to divide the country. His verbiage, in a way, was the what led to the destruction that our country's gone through for the last 4 years. This seemingly great divide, this manufactured divide that is almost humorous, because it's working class people fighting against working class people on behalf of the blowhards like Rush Limbaugh and Ducker Snarlson that use their wealth and their privilege and their leverage to drive a wedge in between real people that are struggling and that actually, want what's best for their communities, but have been confused and misled by these voices of false certainty. These voices of contradictory certainty. The interesting thing to me is that the Christian America was able to be co-opted so blatantly and bullishly by these voices which use their words, use their platforms to completely separate people from the values they state. Judge not lest ye be judged. The loaves and the fishes, which was a statement of abundance and enough for all. And that somehow these people are taking over the national dialogue and getting potentially well-meaning people that say they believe in Christianity or in Christ, that say they believe in family values, to be totally confused about where family values come from. And I think that what it was that Rush Limbaugh capitalized on the angst, the sense of unease, the sense of something being wrong in America when he got started. And that uncertain emotion, that invisible thing that was driving the working class, going, what's going on? Where is our dream? The dream that's slipping through our fingers. Where is that going? Why is it going anywhere? And instead of saying, well, it's because stockholders have got a hold of your pensions and they're basically, your jobs aren't being taken by immigrants. Your jobs are being literally exported with your factories overseas. Your pensions are being invested to take your jobs away from you and to give them to another country. And people in Wall Street are going to make billions, but your communities, your homes, your roads are going to fall into disrepair. And while all that's happening around you, instead of letting you know or communicating to you why it's happening so that you can do anything about it, these righteous voices were yelling into the ears of working class America, telling them to fear the other, fear the immigration, to blame others for the falling apart of their communities, their workplaces, and eventually their families. And that was the great lie. The great lie is there's some other that's coming to, take away your values or undermine, what you think is sacred or whatever. And, it's like what Americans didn't know at that point was to always ask, where is this person coming from? What socioeconomic class is Tucker Snarlson or Rush Limbaugh from? What were their financial interests? Who were their backers? Who are the people that profit from them convincing you, convincing your family probably if you're watching this video, to believe in these things, these lies that have been pitting working class Americans against working class Americans, calling them libs and calling them conservatives. And I mean, there's nothing compared to what these media personalities and what Wall Street has done to the so-called American dream. This dream that was never something that people were really supposed to be allowed to have. And it was a dream that the minute that it was in the grasp of everyone, regardless of the color of their skin or their gender, it was a dream that started to be in the shadows, violently attacked, undermined through personalities exactly like these that use their voices of certainty, use their braggadocio to harness the unverbalized emotions living deep in the stomachs of American people, the unknown, the unspoken feeling of something being wrong, something being off. And they took that feeling and they told that feeling in people's guts what it meant, what it was for, where to aim it. And they weaponized people's own instincts and intuition against their best interests. So at the end of this week, with so many transitions and transformations going on in America, so many shifts, where we're really having to face that there are multiple classes of people that can spirit their families away to resorts in the sun, while the people that they say they're there to serve and that they are truly being paid by the working class, their salary to serve, are showing that they have total disdain for the very people that pay their salary. That everywhere that their wealth and influence, status has come from, their role in government, their positions, which has been paid for by the working class, that is exactly the government that they are trying to destroy. Because now that they've gotten what they want to break the rule book so that they have no rules. And that's why Texas is suffering, is because ERCOT didn't have rules. They deregulated the market. Texas is the perfect example of how this idea of free market capitalism just doesn't work. It's never really worked. The whole notion of free market capitalism was based on colonialism, which was based on imperialism, which was based on slavery, violence, and stealing from others what you didn't want to trade equitably with them for. So that we've allowed ourselves to be overwrought by this false idea of capitalism. This idea that was never in the best interests of humanity or of all people or of families, but was always just an excuse to give people that had acquired the ability to commit violence upon others to give them the moral excuse that this was somehow an ism, a way of life, a way forward. It's truly never been the way that society or civilization or innovation has taken place. When we look at the history books, great innovation has come in times when people have enough, that most of the systems that keep society as we know it functioning are systems that arise organically just from communities, from people all pitching in to help each other. We know that most of us, if we could, we would go chop wood and bring a bunch of rocket stoves and fuel to our fellow Texans so they could weather this winter. It's a strange world that we're living in, and I don't quite understand how people have been able to get our minds so confused and twisted up about being able to really see basic humanity. Anybody that listens to these personalities, listen to Limbaugh, listens to Snarlson, listens to Ted Cruz. Like anybody that trusts those people, that believes those people care about them, or that their opinion isn't totally self-motivated for their own aggrandizement and profit, has decided to alienate themselves from actually critically looking at what's happening around them, looking at our country, and never just asking the question, what are the intentions? What are the motives? What does this person have to gain for saying what they're saying? What are they achieving? And who are they achieving it for? And is it helping, and has it helped? Because I would contend that, well, people like Limbaugh and people like Carlson, or these personalities that people revered, and they thought the world of them, or they tuned in to be told how to think, how to perceive things, that's not the news, and that's not the world. It's great to share your perspective with the world, but to kind of obliviate through total boisterous obliviation. What was it? Bloviation. People's own critical thinking, own ability to take in information from the environment, from their life, and assess it and analyze it and make a reasonable assessment of what's actually happening. To do that is to deny people their own authority and their own will, to deny them the one of the most fundamental tenets of what we consider to be unique to being human. And I hope that as we weather this storm, not only in the United States, but it's a global storm. The pandemic was only the final straw, the final stress to a system that was really already at its breaking point last year, for the last 10 years, for the last 20 years. People having to escape their homes, the land that they live on, escaping it because of drug cartels and environmental disaster and water shortages brought about by globalization, brought about by the total destruction of natural environmental cycles, the hydrological cycle, the water cycle. People don't want to have to flee their homes. And most people didn't create the circumstances for which they needed to flee their homes. In the same way that the Native Americans didn't walk on the Trail of Tears because they really wanted to get to Oklahoma. That's not the way it happened. We tend to obliviate history, obliviate the causes for the problems that we see today. And I hope that in 2021, after everything we've been through, we start to practice listening a little bit more before we react, because we can see that anyone, any personality that riles us up in order to get us to react, that means that they don't want us to have our own authority. That means that they don't want us to be resourced. They don't want us to make the best choice for ourselves, because that's what you do to push people off of their center, to get people to be, outside of their own intelligence, their own experience, is to get them to be reactive. So when I see any of these personalities, whether they're on the radio or whether on the TV or on YouTube, and I see that they're fomenting, they're trying to generate this deep emotional reaction in people, whichever side it seems that they're on, it must mean that they don't want you to have your power. They don't want you to claim your dignity. But the people that are saying, hey, let's ask questions, let's listen, let's be present, let's take stock of this situation, and let's explore the possible outcomes. Let's see what we can do. Let's find the solutions. They may not be reactive. They may not be plugging in, tapping into that emotional sense of something being wrong. But what they're seeking to do is to actually release that tension so that we can be intelligent and respond gracefully and graciously to all the challenges that face us. So here's to the voices of simplicity, voices of listening, voices of questions, voices that help us to slow down and to be present so that we can actually make this world a better place for all of us. Sorry for this being long and boring, but this is Noah Crow with What If News. And the question is, what if the people on the news, the people on the radio, what if those people actually cared about all of us? What if those people weren't trying to profit from what they're doing by getting reactions from people? What if those people, what if the voices were actually helping us to look at all the different options, all the different perspectives, and to weigh them? What if the voices that we were piping into our homes, into our lives, into our minds, into our way of seeing the world, what if those voices were voices that were just reminding us of our own internal wisdom, to look deep within and to find what we know based on our experience and nobody else's opinions? What we know is aligned with our true values. See you next time.